Welcome to Between a Rock and a Yard Place. This is Michael Barbera, Chief Behavioral Officer at Clicksuasion Labs. The premise of this research is to identify how people perceive yard signs when placed in their front yard of residential property from home service providers such as real estate, roofing, cleaning services, appliances, delivery, pool maintenance, etc. There's a bunch of industries that we'll talk through later on through these slides. So let's dive right on in. The first yard sign that we think of is real estate. It's pretty much the market leader when it comes to yard signs. So we see the for sale sign, and we typically know one of the companies that is usually has that or marketing that home for sale. However, it's common practice for home service providers to place a yard sign, letting neighbors know or people in the neighborhood be aware that someone from that company is on site servicing or maintaining that property, to also give awareness to that brand as well. Often the truck for the company or vehicle likely has a wrap or is branded with a phone number, website, or brand name. However, some companies go one step forward and place a yard sign in the yard. So we're going to identify or share some research of how people perceive that to be trustworthy of a brand, how we believe they're caring for our property, our willingness to spend money, our willingness to share a recommendation for that company with a friend or colleague, and a few other metrics as well. All right, so the researchers for this study are Cindy Fifield, Katana Lemelin, and myself at Clicksuasion Labs. And so the first part, let's talk about perceived respect from the brand without a yard sign. So what is the amount of respect that this company placed into the care of your home when a yard sign was not placed in the yard? And we learned that 55% of participants in the study believe that an excellent amount of care was placed into the home when no yard sign was present, and 35% was good, with a significant less being more towards average and poor. So let's look at the opposite. Now, the perceived respect with the brand when a yard sign was placed into the yard. So what is the amount of respect this company placed into the care of your home when a yard sign was placed in the yard when the home service provider was at the residence servicing that property? We had a decrease of 6.2% in excellent. We're at 48.8%. And then we had an increase in good by 8.9%, and then a slight drop in the average and poor categories. When looking at the Net Promoter Score, or NPS, for yard sign placement, when we ask consumers, how likely are you to recommend this product or service to a friend or colleague? In this case, it's a service. So how likely are you to recommend this service to a friend or colleague? The NPS, or Net Promoter Score, was 62.5 when a yard sign was present. 65% were promoters, 32 and change were passives, and 2.5% were detractors. Now let's take a look at when the yard sign was not present. The NPS, or Net Promoter Score, actually decreased by 2.5 points. And then the promoters increased by 5% to 70%, passives decreased slightly to 20%, and detractors increased by 7.5%, equaling to or totaling to 10% for without the sign present in the yard. When looking at the willingness to provide feedback, so when 450 recipients of a home service in a large set of industries were asked to give feedback to their service, with the yard sign present, 28% provided positive feedback to that service, and then with negative feedback, 20% provided negative feedback with the yard sign present. Without a yard sign, 26% of 450 people provided positive feedback without a yard sign, which is a slight increase. And then we had 8% provide negative feedback without a yard sign. So when the service was complete and the home service providers vacated the property shortly thereafter, or within 24 hours, 410 participants who received service received a text message or SMS with the prompt to add additional services from that home service provider. When the yard sign was placed in the home, 15% of participants in the study accepted the next service or were willing to accept an additional service, whereas 19% who said they would accept services who did not have a yard sign. So we're leaning towards that. Most people here are suggesting that they have or be more friendly towards service. We perceive there's more care from the service when the yard sign is not present. However, the Net Promoter Score is slightly higher when the yard sign is present. So obviously, real estate is the market leader, so it would be unfair to discuss real estate metrics when talking about yard signs. So on this chart here, we have the delta or the difference between the original listing price of a home and the final sale price of a home over the years 2019 and 2020. So looking at the left-hand column, we've got in percentages going from 6% down to -4%. This is the difference in the original listing price to the final sale price from a total of 583 homes. So in 2019, when a home was listed for sale without a yard sign, the difference from the listing price to the final sale price was -3%. Whereas with the yard sign in real estate, it increased in 2019 to 6% higher than the original listing price. In 2020, without a yard sign, the difference between the original listing price and the final sale price was an increase of 4%, whereas with the yard sign in 2020 was a decrease of 1% in the delta or difference between the original listing price and the final sale price. So now I see on the bottom, we have listed a large number of industries. So we couldn't cover all the industries, and we'll talk through limitations, I believe, on the next slide or the next two slides. What we have here on the left-hand side is the willingness to accept yard signs on a Likert scale of 1 to 10. So how likely are you to accept, or how likely are you to allow this industry to place a yard sign in your yard, going from a scale of 1 to 10. On the far left-hand side, real estate leads the way. We are more likely to accept or be willing to have real estate industry place a yard sign in our front yard. So they're leading the way with just higher than 7 and just below 8. For roofing, it's about average, just below 5. Cleaning services is significantly lower, just below 2. We're about 1.7, I think, was the Likert scale for cleaning services. Painters then rose back up to above 6, above average, and then carpentry and general contractors and landscapers significantly decreased. And we'll talk through why we believe they decreased here in a moment. HVAC or HVAC and appliance significantly increased to about average. Delivery dropped down, whereas pool maintenance significantly increased. And again, you might see a trend. You might be picking up on a trend that we're going to talk through on the next slide. Pet grooming and locksmithing industries are just below average, below the 5 mark. Tutoring is significantly low. One of the lowest is about about 1.6 on the Likert scale for our willingness to accept. Auto repair, or mobile auto repair, we should say, when that service is done on our residential property, is below average, but around 2.5. For the flooring industry, we're above average, and then catering, one of the highest, just below real estate, we're in the 7s. For house sitting, childcare, and fitness are all significantly low, all around 1.4 to 1.6, depending on each of those industries. So let's break down why each of these industries are varying such greatness between each. So what we found, the variance between industry, it is significant. Typically in research, you don't see so much of a variance in industry based upon one specific marketing technique. It does happen. However, in the hypothesis for this research, we did not expect to see such a large variance between industries. We expected to be around just above average for most industries. So those who are significantly below average were a shock in the data and the analysis. We also found that there's a correlation between value and price for what people were willing to pay for services when the yard sign was present and not present. For those who had a yard sign present, we were willing to pay less money because we believe that the company or brand cared for our property a little less than what we would have cared for it as well. And even though it's only 2, 3, or 4 stakes going into the ground, it's probably not going to make any significant damage or be noticeable once the sign leaves. We still perceive it as sticking something sharp into our property or not taking care of our property. So what does this mean? If we look back at and I'll go back one slide, we look back at the breakdown by industry and the willingness to accept yard signs, and you see there's this large difference. We notice that there's two trending categories here. The first one is safety and security. Those that imply safety or security typically score low. We're not willing to accept a yard sign. So for example, house sitting, childcare, kind of safety and security. We really don't want people knowing that we're not home, someone's taking care of our child, or someone is house sitting. We're less likely to accept a yard sign. And then also it has to do with prestige and social status. As you can see, general contracting, landscaping, cleaning services, and tutoring also have low scores, as well as fitness. Now, what this means is we as humans are slightly embarrassed by our willingness to not clean or hire someone else to clean, someone else to complete our landscaping services, someone to teach us ourselves or a relative on a specific topic, because maybe we believe we're not smart enough to teach ourselves. So it's kind of embarrassing for us. So we're less likely to accept a yard sign because it decreases our social status and our prestige in our community. And then the limitations for this study, there's only one sign per home. We did not have multiple service providers at each home for this study. That data is likely to be present in the future, but unknown for today. So only one home per residence. And then the second limitation is that this study included residential properties only. No commercial properties were included in the study. However, most of the service providers who provided home services do provide services to both residential and commercial, but the participants in the study who received the services were only at residential properties. All right, that is the research for between a rock and a yard place, the willingness to accept and the perception of having yard signs placed at your home from home service providers. More than happy to field any questions. Go ahead and drop your questions into the chat box and then be more than happy to answer. If we don't have the answer, we'll try to point you in the best possible direction. I have a question. Question is, what do you think is driving the difference between the Net Promoter Score, or NPS, and perceived respect for with signs? That is a good question. There are a lot of variables that drive NPS or Net Promoter Score. However, for the with, I'll work backwards. For the with signs portion of your question, when signs are placed that equate to our social status, our prestige, we're showing off to the Joneses. We want to be known as the person who has the likable lifestyle. It's equivalent to overt consumption on social media. For the NPS, it also contributes to, if you enjoy this, say, high ticket item or social status activity at your home, you're more likely to show it off and also likely to buy another service as well. When it comes to the items that have low prestige, or excuse me, that have to do with safety and security, or have a negative affect on the social status and prestige, then we are likely to hide that from overconsumption and not allow others to see. So we might be more hesitant on making that additional purchase or recommending that purchase because we don't want other people to know that we engage in an activity that might be damaging to our social status. Wendy, let me know if I answered your question. Question from Britt. This is in addition to a car wrap or signage, correct? Britt, I'll clarify. This will be signage placed into lawn at a home. So although some of the service providers in the study did have the cars wrapped, magnets, or otherwise had branded materials on their vehicle, the study did not measure engagement with the vehicles, only engagement due to the signs. There is some data to suggest there's some correlation between car wraps, but not in the current release of the study today. Might be more to follow. And then another Well, not a question, but an observation. I'll just read it. Maybe it would be better to put the sign on the service vehicle. That way you don't just get permission and you don't have to come back and pick up a sign. Maybe the sign could be something like a flag that says, we're working in your area today. Please give us a call if you need anything. Great observation and suggestion. Nothing wrong with that at all. Obviously, if you're wrapping a vehicle or you're using branded content on a vehicle, you have more real estate than a sign, and you're less likely to have a negative affect and perception or trust and loyalty from a customer. Question. So would it be fair to say Net Promoter Score is more a reflection of the provider, but the perceived respect scoring is more how the service reflects on the homeowner? I would say there's merit to both aspects of that question, and allow me to explain. It is merit on the service provider. However, if the homeowner or customer is not willing to recommend that service to a friend or colleague, then it is difficult for that business to scale and achieve more customers. Does the size of the sign matter? That's a very good question. Um, I will mention 2 points. So first, I'll say, based upon the study that we're sharing today, the size of the sign was not measured in the data. However, most were typical. I think they were 18 by 24 inch or 24 by 36-inch signs. Don't quote me on that sign, but you can guess around the standard real estate slash, say, political sign you see in a yard. However, the other part of that is there's additional research beyond this study that suggests that having a remarkable, memorable, or unique shape to the sign is more likely to give an advantage because it's memorable and it doesn't look like a square or rectangle like everyone else's sign that might be in the neighborhood. Another question, does the color or the font size matter? Yes. Okay, I'll answer that again 2 ways. Again, so for the purpose of this study, we did not measure any color or fonts or engagement between color and fonts. However, brands who are using yard signs or even wrapping their vehicles should use colors and fonts that are consistent with their brand and have a 360-degree or holistic brand message. So that way, when customers or potential customers are engaging with that brand, it's one brand, such as the same font, same colors, and same typography that the customer might likely see at that location as opposed to somewhere else as well. Question from Britt, what to highlight? Brand impressions, phone number, or website? That is a great question. I'll say all of the above with the focus or niche on your specific journey. If you believe that your customers, potential customers or prospects are likely to engage with your brand via a website, then drive them to your website. If you believe that your funnel is holds more weight via phone calls, then I would suggest driving your traffic via phone. Follow the data for your current customers. If they prefer phone, go with phone. If they prefer text, go with text. However, your customers are currently engaging and they feel comfortable engaging with your brand is probably the course of the call to action I would suggest going forward. All right, no more questions. We will wrap this up. This video and presentation webinar is recorded. We will share it with everyone who registered for this webinar. It'll also be posted at the Clicksuasion Labs website. That link will be shared with you via email in the next 24 to 48 hours. If you have any questions on yard signs, please reach out and ask. The worst thing we'll say is we don't know and try to point you in the best possible direction. Beyond that, have an amazing day, continue to kick butt, and go wash your hands.
Thanks for listening to Clicksuasion. Subscribe to the podcast, read our research, and get in touch with us at clicksuasion.com. You can also find us on Twitter with the handle @Clicksuasion.